Good evening, Australia, and welcome to Switched on IT. This is the show where we discuss IT issues and we talk about things like social media and SEO and staying safe online. There are lots of things that we talk about in here. This morning we have our usual panel with us, Ray and Doug. Good morning, Ray and Doug. Or good evening to you, Ray. And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Barry. Good evening, Ray.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning,
now,
Doug and Barry.
Thank you. And gentlemen, we're going to discuss today SEO and how to get yourself found online, correct?
That's correct. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, now, I'm going to jump out of here and we're going to leave it to you. So, Doug and Ray, it's now over to you.
Terrific. Thanks, Barry.
I think it's good for us both to start.
Say that again, Ray.
No, I was going to say I was going to turn it to you for us to start off with maybe defining search engine optimization for our audience.
Sure. I'll give it a shot, and let's define it. Tell the audience what it is. So, search engine optimization, as a definition, it's optimizing each and every page of your website so that it can be easily found by a search engine, whether that search engine is Google or Bing or any other search engine. It's not the paid advertising, and I think that's the fundamental difference that we need to sort of point out at the get-go here. So, you can buy online advertising, you can buy ads to appear on a particular website, or you can buy Google AdWords to appear in the search results when a person is, looking for a particular product or service. They'll think of the words that would describe that, and they'll key that into a search engine such as Google or Bing, and then there's little ads that will appear to the right of that. Now, search engine optimization is to get you visible, not in those ads, but in the actual content that is indexed by the search engines underneath, and that's called a natural search result or an organic search result. So today's discussion is really focused on search engine optimization, which is making sure that your website has got such rich content that it appears quite readily in keyword searches that relate to your product or service in those organic search results. Over to you, Ray. I think that's probably a reasonable definition, but you can add to it, please.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think certainly content's one side. The other side are the technical components that you use when you publish your website to make sure that Google and the other search engines know how your content is structured so that they can best put your content in front of users, searchers, when they come to Google or another search engine, as you said, like Bing or Yahoo or otherwise. I think that's really important for people to recognize, and that there's kind of a difference between the technical components of search engine optimization and the content or keyword functionality that you want to, or keyword optimization that you want to do for the search engines.
Yeah, totally agree. So, in terms of sort of exploring that, Ray, when you're looking at if you're helping an organisation or indeed doing your own search engine optimization, probably it's best to let's kind of consider a case study where somebody sort of knocks on the door and says to Doug and Ray, look, I've got a website, I've spent many thousands of dollars, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars on it over the last 3 or 4 years, but I'm not getting enough traffic, and I do a Google search and I don't seem to be appearing in the search results on Google or Bing or any of the search engines that me or my potential customers might be using. So, Ray, what do I do to address this horrible situation? What's your kind of starting point, and how do you evolve that over a period of time?
Yeah, so not to get too thick in the weeds here, but it's really important to recognize that when you have a website that's not being found and you put time, energy, and resources typically money, into a website, that there are some technical components that might be blocking you from being able to be seen by search engines. One is that you have the wrong country listed as your website, or the wrong language, for example. I recently had a client, this is going back a year or two, where they published the website, fairly well done, and the developer was in a different country than the client. So once they had published the website, they had actually set the wrong language. And so when someone typed a search into Google, it wasn't showing up because it wasn't set to their language. And so they needed to change that. So just basic things like location, making sure that the language is set properly so that Google is indexing the right website for the right language and country, just out the gate, is really important. But then, if it's not an actual technical problem, then it's really important to consider how many pages are published to Google, and whether or not you are publishing what's called a sitemap. So do you want to kind of give a light description, Doug, of what a sitemap is for folks?
Sure. A sitemap is basically it's an index of all the pages on the website that you would like to be searched or crawled, as they say, by a search engine. So, there could be some pages on the website that you don't want the search engine to crawl. There's no point in it. It's just, taking up time and resources to have them indexed. And then there are the pages on the website that you do want to make sure that are crawled and indexed by the website. So just the very fact that you've created a sitemap, you've appended it to your website code, so it's permanently hosted there, just like any other page on the website, and that basically flags it to all of the search engines that this is where I, as the search engine, go to make sure that I'm finding all the correct pages that this website publisher wants me to find. And I think that is just a big tick in the box to the search engines to say, well, this is a legitimate website, and we'll index it. I think, and I think, Ray, what we're sort of talking about here is getting some of these basic things right. And sometimes when I've been in the situation where I've been assessing somebody, a business that is trying to improve their online visibility to natural search results, what I've suggested to them is that we pull together what is a sort of a one-off best practice implementation of their website from a search engine optimization standpoint. And because I know with a lot of people, they get all these emails from various nations in various parts of the world saying, we'll get you on page one and we'll do all those sorts of things. But it's going to cost you so much, per month, and sometimes those costs can be, quite significant. But I think it's fair to say, isn't it, when you get presented with a website that hasn't been optimized, right off the bat, there is a whole bunch of things that you can do which are, in a sense, one-off, addressing one-off factors that once you get them right, you don't really need to address them again. There's obviously other things that you'll continue to do over time, but I think it's possible to pull together a one-off best practice implementation and tick a lot of those boxes. Now, Ray, you mentioned a couple of really key things there. One is language. Number two is the country in which the website is hosted and intended to be covering, and a third element is having the sitemap published. What are some of the other things that you might see as being those one-off factors that as a sort of in a sense a consulting task you might work through and sequentially get them all up to speed?
Yeah, so once the sitemap is published, you want to really start looking at the fundamentals of each of the pages. So while people sometimes think of a website as a whole document, each page within that document is looked at individually by Google and the other search engines. So it's really important to start analyzing each page on the website individually. One of the primary things that we want to really look at is the length of the page and the quality of the content that's on the page. So that's something that's a little bit more, you know, what is Google seeing when it comes to your page? And actually, Google provides you a tool called the Google Search Console, and you can Google it and find the Google Search Console. And once you register your site within Google Search Console, you can actually see what Google sees. It'll show you how it renders, and that is really helpful. Typically, we guide clients to at least have web pages that are approximately 300 words in length, and so that Google sees it and can index it appropriately, and that there's enough content on the page. Now, you can have a page that's as long as you want it to be, but Google actually sends a small piece of software around your website, and that little piece of software, sometimes called a spider, is what looks at each web page, and it only looks at so much content on the page, and so it doesn't have time to look at every piece of content across the entire page. So it actually does a quick scan of the web page, looks at its architecture, and starts to look at a number of different things. So it's really important to understand that. We'll talk about keywords, I think, in a little bit. So I'm going to diverge from that ever so slightly to say that one is to look at the length of the page, look at the architecture of your page, and then you really want to pay attention to the size of files, like what's the file size of the page, what are the file size of the images on your website, and making sure that those are as small as possible. One of the things about a website is it's the speed at which it gets downloaded. And there are many things you can do to speed up a website, but if you can create content that is speedy from the get-go, meaning that you're not filling it up with unnecessary stuff like big images and other kinds of superfluous data, you make that file size small so that if someone's on a mobile phone or on a slow internet connection, even at home, they're able to still get a website quickly downloaded, because we know that websites that load fast are websites that are opened and visited and stayed at. People don't wait very long for a website that will load. And you probably experienced that quite a bit, Doug, with regard to clients talking about speed of website. What are some things that website owners can do in order to speed up their website?
Yeah, good question, Ray, and you're absolutely correct that it is one of the most critical things in your search engine ranking. If you've got a really slow page load speed, Google know that people just don't stick around waiting, 8 or 10 seconds or even more for the page to load on their browser window on the screen. So there's no point in Google sending searchers, what they regard as their customers, to a website which takes so long to load that half the customers have actually clicked away from it before it's completed loading. That's just a big signal to Google that it was a waste of time sending them there. So don't. Google, their job as a provider of a search engine is to make sure that they're sending people to website pages that are going to be useful to them. And they look at how much time you spend on the page and whether you've clicked away quickly or whether you've gone deeper into the site and all those sorts of things. Page load speed can be a complete barrier to all the other good work that somebody might have done to optimise their page. So we use some tools and recommend our customers use some tools, Ray. There are products out there such as GT Metrics. Google have their own page load speed indexing service, and all of these tools will tell you where the speed bumps are in the loading of that individual page. There are a number of things you can do. Some of them are things like caching of popular pages, so that if somebody comes back to a website, the page will load a lot more briskly than it would otherwise. There are products or tools called Engine X which can really help with this. There is I don't want to get too into the reads again on code, but the version of PHP that the website code is using can have a significant difference on the or impact on the page load speed. And then there's the infrastructure elements again. So somebody might be on what's called a shared hosting platform, and that is a platform where that website is on the same server as potentially thousands and thousands of other websites. Now that might be quite inexpensive, but if the actual server resources that are underpinning those all those websites are under significant load, they might not load up the website all that quickly. So, you know, that could be an issue, and that is something where somebody might look at, you know, their hosting provider and say, well, you know, you might be cheap, but it's a slow service, so I need to move on, and that would be quite a realistic thing to do. Obviously, with image sizes, images, as Ray, you mentioned, they can be cut down in size, so they should be as small as you can get away with, and I think that's something that people often just don't realise, that not everyone is on a super fast connection, and you know, if they're on a fairly congested connection, then you know, image page load speed can be a real issue. Sometimes people that are on a shared hosting environment, where they're just one of thousands of websites on a server, will look at it and they'll say, you know, I'm doing e-commerce, I've got a very large website, I want to make sure that, you know, as people are transacting on this, I need it to be as crisp and as fast as possible. We all know people leave stuff in the shopping cart because, you know, just the speed with which a transaction can be processed seems to hang, and they abandon the shopping cart. So that can be quite costly. So in those scenarios, we would always recommend a customer uses a virtual private server where effectively they've got their own compute resources and they can buy the compute power that they need to optimise their page load speed on each and every page in their website. But you know, there's lots of other things that you can do to optimise page load speed, and certainly when you look at one of those tools that Google provide, or GT Metrics, or any of those other providers, they will give you a list of, you know, 50 or 60 lines of different things that are loading in your page, and each one of those can be optimised. So it can become quite a technical exercise to optimise that. I'd say I wouldn't want to scare everybody about shared hosting. That would be wrong. Typically, my experience when you start looking at website pages and their load speed is look at the code, look at the content. That is where most of the improvements can be made. I think it would be a really poor website hosting service where somebody found that they actually had to move off a shared hosting service because of page load speed. And you know, it's unless they wanted to stay with you know, having large images and you know, some other factors that would make them want to stay there.
Break out the popcorn, sweets and drinks. It's Sunday night at the movies. Latest release movies brought to you exclusively by US filmmakers, including Lima Films. Sunday night at the movies, so join us every Sunday night at 7 p.m. right here on Power TV Australia.
Art by Leonardo's has moved to the Toowoomba Homemaker Centre. Sit down with a coffee and our friendly, experienced staff can help you choose the perfect custom frame to suit your artwork and budget. Plus, all framing is done on site. Come and visit us at our new showroom.
Whether you're a professional musician, a weekend warrior, or just starting out, you need to talk to the experts at Royce Music. With over 35 years experience, Royce, Toowoomba's oldest music store, specialise in guitars, drums and sound equipment, and can even repair and maintain your equipment. Call them today on 46 327 377, drop into their showroom at 17 Bowen Street, or find them on Facebook. Royce Music, selling Toowoomba's finest musical instruments.
Looking for exposure for your business or event? Take your business, community event, training seminar, sports fixture, function, concert or exhibition to the world with Power TV Australia and Power FM's unique live outside simulcasts. We can turn your next local event into a worldwide sensation with stunning live pictures, interviews, graphics, and live action replays for a fraction of the usual cost. From a festival or sports fixtures to a corporate or charity event, Power TV Australia and Power FM can take your message live to our local and national viewers and listeners. Invite the world to your party by contacting Barry today on 0431 390 920 or email programming@powertvaustralia.com for a quote.
Welcome back to Switched on IT. We have Doug and Ray with us. Ray, I see that you've got a new headset on. I guess that's not because you're cold because of the weather in Washington, is it?
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Little technical difficulties.
A little technical difficulty. Okay. I'll turn this back over to you guys, and we'll pick it up from where you left off.
Yeah, so when we left off, Doug, we were talking about some other things that we can do in order to increase the search engine optimization of specific pages, and you were talking about alternative tags within images, and I was going to add that you have some additional pieces of the kind of SEO toolkit that you can use to be able to do that. One of those things is what's called keyword ratio, or the amount of keywords, the number of times you use the keywords on the page. And so there's actually, you have to be very careful about this, because sometimes what's called keyword stuffing, people just repeat the keywords that you want Google to find on your website over and over and over again. You do not want to do that. But what you can do is throughout the web page, throughout the content that you're writing, choose to use that keyword a few times throughout the page so that Google knows that that is the keyword you're looking for. Similar to the way in which you talked about structuring the document so that you have the keyword in header tags, you can do that throughout the text as well, so that Google knows, oh, you're talking about this particular search term, right? And you want it to be natural language. Typically, you're not going to use jargon. You're not going to use terminology that may be very technical or industry specific. You're going to use terms that people are going to use in order to, by typing that into Google, or saying it into Google nowadays, and they're going to find it by typing that or searching Google for those things. So you want to use the terms that Google users are going to search for. So that's one thing, is how much and how often the keyword is used throughout the page. Another couple of things that you might want to think about is how you actually style the text. So for example, styling could be hyperlinking text. So when you actually hyperlink the keywords of a page, you are actually telling Google that that is important text. And frequently you're going to link, hyperlinked text is going to be linked to an external resource or an internal resource, meaning that you're going to direct the words to another page on your website that's internal, or you're going to link it to an external page, which is to another website. What you really want to pay attention to is that if you're going to link to material off your website, especially from a keyword, you want to make sure that that website has strong, what we call strong authority, that they're a website that's reputable. And frequently, we're not going to really highlight keywords for the page in which you're trying to optimize it for. So for example, if you're trying to publish a website that's about cats, right, and you use cats throughout the page, C-A-T-S, cats, you go ahead and mention that several times, well, you might actually naturally want to link the word cats the first time you use it to, say, a Wikipedia article, right? Wikipedia has strong authority, so that's good. It's a legitimate site that you might link to, but also remember that that web page article is optimized itself to be high ranking with Google. So if it's a choice between Google putting the Wikipedia article for cats, to the forefront for your web page, no offense, but Wikipedia is going to win, right? So you don't always want to link to outside material for the keyword that you're going to optimize for. You might want to link out to other phrases that are in your page and like link to the word felines, right, instead of cats. That tells Google that there's this related word that is being linked to a page, a website that has high authority, and that actually gives you this a little bit of what I call search engine mojo, right? It uses what's called the semantic web algorithms to be able to increase your search engine ranking by connecting related words back to your web page. So you can use some of these more advanced features and functionalities within search engine optimization toolkits to be able to do that. So, certainly using that. I also believe that you should have a wide number of pages that optimize for specific keywords. So, for example, if you have, say, 40 or 50 keywords that you're trying to optimize for Google and the other search engines, you want to make sure that you have an individual page, each individual page focused on just one of those keywords. You don't want to optimize a web page for multiple keywords. Really, the only page on your website that will not be optimized for a specific keyword is probably your home page. And the rest of your pages on your website are really going to be optimized for one keyword or one key phrase that someone will search to find that individual page on Google. And you want to do that for each keyword that you would want to be found on Google by. So Doug, did I miss anything?
No, I totally agree with what you're saying, and I think the interesting thing about this is, as we have this conversation, Ray, is it kind of surfaces that it is quite it's quite an art form. It's not the sort of thing, it's not the sort of process, this optimization process, that an ordinary business owner is going to be able to do off the bat and self-help. So maybe we ought to have a look at what our recommendations would be in terms of how somebody, how a business owner or a the marketing guy in a business might tackle the search engine optimization process, because we've spoken about having a one-off, bring the website up to what looks like best practice, which would be all the things we've talked about with header tags and alt tags and making sure you've done your keyword research and you've got good copy and the sitemap and all those sorts of things. And obviously we know that businesses are getting peppered continuously with literally unbelievable offers to get their website on page 1 of Google. So I guess we need to touch on whether we think this is something where you engage a professional, and what we think are the various reasonable ways of handling that in the long run. So do I get somebody to do the best practice implementation, and then what do I do after that? And if I'm a business owner or I've got a good marketing person, how much should I let them do, and to what extent should I engage some external experts to continue to work with me and continue to optimize the website? So what's your sense on that, Ray?
Yeah, I usually tell people that this whole notion of getting on the first page of Google is rubbish. The reality is that there is no first page of Google. What you do in terms of searching on the internet today, especially as it relates to Google's search engine index, is it's a dynamic search that places results ahead of others, very tailored to the individual who is doing that search. So Doug, you may do a search and have a completely different first page SERP, which is a search engine results page, than I would. And everybody needs to recognize that being high up in the search engine doesn't necessarily mean being high up in the search engine when you do the search. So what you should really fundamentally kind of step away from is this idea that you're gonna be at the top of every search with Google. That's not practical to hire a search engine optimization agency that's going to be continually charging you money to quote unquote be at the top of the search engine. I fundamentally believe that there are things you can do to maintain your website as you add new content so that you can stay well optimized. Right? The number one factor that's going to help you with search engine rankings over time, other than the technical stuff we talked about, is sheer volume, the number of pages that you publish to Google. If you publish enough pages, that means there's enough content, hopefully that it's good content, valuable to the searchers on Google, that Google will put those people in touch with your website. So it's really just a matter of creating really great content and having a good SEO checklist. There are tools out there, like within WordPress, there's a plugin called Yoast, it's Y-O-A-S-T, and Yoast is a free tool that you implement, and it gives you a very easy score and a checklist of things you can do as you create web pages as well as posts within the WordPress platform, so you can kind of check off the boxes. You know what you need to do in order to make sure your web page is properly optimized for the search engines, and then you can go on with running your business as opposed to being focused so much on the technical tools. And then for whoever is doing the work, whether that be you or your somebody that you delegated to, can follow what Yoast tells you to do. And there are these tools for other content management systems or other website platforms that you can use. And so I really highly recommend that once you do that kind of upstart work, as you talked about, Doug, of kind of getting the site as it currently is optimized, once that's done, then it's a matter of making sure that when you add new content to the site, that you're continually making sure it's put on in such a way that you don't have any of these pieces leaking out, images that are too big for the search engine to index, or pages that are sloppily structured. So how do you see?
Sorry, Ray. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, how do you see the industry of SEO agencies that come courting businesses to hire them to basically bring them higher up in the search engines?
Look, they can definitely add some value, Ray, because there can just be so much time wasted by a small business trying to get their head around SEO particularly, and get that into some good shape. I think for businesses, it's important that they are doing their SEO with somebody who understands the cultural context of their business. So I think you really need, somebody who is going to have hopefully a face-to-face conversation with the other individual and talk about their business, what they're doing, how they're trying to develop their business over time, who can then really get it. And even though that individual might also use some external resources in another country or something like that, I do think that there's a great benefit in having somebody who is going to sit down with the client, with me if I'm the client, and tell me what they're doing and why, and let me explain to them what I'm trying to do with the company and the product lines that I see as having the greatest potential. And also having a little bit of that reality check conversation. And you mentioned Wikipedia, and of course there's universities. I mean, we can look at a whole bunch of keywords that we might want to use, particularly in the technical space, and we've got to be realistic and understand that if we're talking about cybersecurity, then there's a lot of government websites and university websites that publish a hell of a lot of very interesting material, and it's very hard for us to compete against those, and we kind of need somebody to help us and guide us and make sure that we can be realistic in what we're trying to achieve. And I think often in those kinds of circumstances, for a lot of businesses, it then might become an interesting objective to try and make your search results targeted to a particular geographic area in which you operate, and trying to see if there are any clues in any way that your search engine optimization consultant can help you maximize your visibility for search within a particular geographic area. And I think that's that might be a discussion for another day, but I think there's some great potential in that space as well.
Yeah, that's a fair argument. I think there are opportunities where legitimate search engine consultants can help, and the big scare that I have, or the worry that I consistently have, are these people who offer, will get you to the top of a Google search engine results page, you know, and that's a red flag in my book. But I think there are legitimate SEO consultants out there who can really be helpful if they are willing to do what you're talking about, which is educating the business owner about the fundamentals and being able to help them analyze and synthesize the more complicated, what we call long-tail keyword approaches to ranking on Google, which is, if you're trying to rank for cats, that's very difficult. But if you're trying to rank for a much more specific search, which is, the age of the American puma, right? That's going to be something that you might be able to rank for. How old does the American puma live? Right? That's a search that someone's going to do in the world. I don't know who, but somebody's going to do that search, and that's a search that you might be able to rank for if you optimize a web page for that. But cats is just too generic, and so if there's somebody out there who's going to help a business owner understand how to do that, I think they're going to be much more legitimate and helpful to you as a business owner to be able to make that happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks very much, Ray. I think we've covered a fair bit of ground. We've probably got our listeners really drinking from the fire hydrant at the moment. So we better hand it back to Barry to take us to the next phase of the discussion for today.
Thanks, gentlemen. That's been a really interesting discussion. Now, can I just ask, Ray, can you tell us if somebody is looking for some help with this, is there something that you can do to help them?
Sure. If they want to reach out, I'm happy to have a conversation with them, and we can talk about what their goals are with regard to their website, and we can certainly run a few tests to see whether or not their site is well optimized, and we can certainly help in that capacity.
Okay, and how do people contact you?
They can just head over to our website, w3cinc.com. Okay,
terrific. And you have a booking site, don't you, so that they can actually book a time to get together with you?
Right. Well, once they click on either the Contact Us button on the web page, there's a contact form, and there's also a contact button. Either one, they both will get to us, and someone will be in touch with them, and they'll be able to schedule directly into our calendar once we reach out to them.
Terrific. And Doug, if somebody wants to talk to you about hosting and the things that you offer, how do they contact you?
Yeah, they can just contact me at ozhosting.com.au, and we've got our phone numbers on the site there, Barry, and we're always happy to talk to them. And, in general terms about SEO, that's not a service that we provide. We'd always refer them to people that we know and trust.
Sure.
But we can also definitely have a conversation with them about how we see hosting factors affecting SEO outcomes, and we're happy to share our knowledge on that.
Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. We'll call it a day at that, and next week we'll come back and we'll discuss another issue. You have been watching Switched on IT with Barry and with Doug from Sydney and Ray from the United States in Washington, and Ray is going to now go and do some work because you've got a big storm coming in, I believe.
Yes, we do. We have a storm coming this way.
All right. Well, we don't have any storms here, but we've had some pretty big storms up north, Doug.
Yeah, we do. It's and we've had fires down south, so we've got it all going on at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. We could probably do with a bit of that snow down south right now, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Good day. All right. Thanks very much, Barry.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Ray. And we'll catch you again next week.